Her name was Sana, 34 years old. A woman who laughed easily, cooked on Sundays with a radio on, and kept a small pot of jasmine on the kitchen windowsill because she said it made the whole house smell like a promise. Sana grew up in a modest family in Lahore, the kind of home where love was shown through actions, not words. Her father worked long hours. Her mother kept the house running like a quiet engine. Sana learned early that loyalty was not spoken, it was lived, and she carried that belief into every relationship she ever had. She met Imran when she was 26. He was charming in that effortless way, not loud, not showy, just present. He remembered small things. He called when he said he would. He brought her mother fruit when they visited. Sana thought this is the kind of man who will never let you down. They got married in October. Simple ceremony. 30 guests. She wore deep red. He cried when he saw her. Or at least, she thought he did. She held on to that memory for years. She still does, actually. Only now it feels like a splinter she cannot remove. They built a life. A real one. A 2-bedroom flat that became a house. 2 children, a boy named Zain, 7 years old, and a girl named Mariam, 5. Sana worked part-time as a school administrator so she could be home when the children returned from school. Imran managed a mid-sized trading company. They were not rich, but they were steady. They were whole. People who knew them said they were the kind of couple you believed in. Friends came to them with marriage problems. Relatives held them up as an example. Sana herself believed, deeply, completely, that whatever storms came, she and Imran would face them together. She had no reason to think otherwise. Not yet. Because the man she loved was very, very good at being 2 people at once. It started, like most quiet catastrophes do, with something small. Something so unremarkable that Sana filed it away without a second thought. Imran had always traveled for work. 2 or 3 days a month, sometimes more. Karachi, sometimes Islamabad, once or twice Dubai. It was normal. It had always been normal. But somewhere around the 3rd year of their marriage, the trips became slightly longer. A Wednesday return became a Thursday. A Thursday became a Friday. He always had an explanation. A delayed shipment. A client dinner that ran long. A morning meeting added at the last minute. Sana believed him. Why wouldn't she? The first real sign, though she did not recognize it as a sign at the time, came on an evening in March. Imran's phone lit up on the kitchen counter while he was in the bathroom. The name on the screen was saved simply as Office Karachi. Sana glanced at it the way you glance at anything that isn't yours. She didn't touch it, but the phone rang 3 times, then stopped, then rang again immediately. When Imran came back, he picked it up, looked at the screen, and said too quickly, too casually, that it was just Tariq from the office. He panics about everything. He stepped into the corridor to call back. His voice through the thin wall was low, controlled, almost deliberately quiet. Yes, I told you. Not now. I'll handle it. Sana thought nothing of it. Business stress, men and their work problems, but the calls kept coming. Not constantly, that would have been too obvious, but consistently, a pattern without a name. And slowly, like a fog rolling in from somewhere she couldn't see, small things began to accumulate. He stopped leaving his phone on the counter. He started sleeping with it face down on the nightstand. Once, only once, Sana picked it up to check the time in the middle of the night and found the screen locked with a new PIN she did not know. She had known his PIN for 6 years. It had always been Zane's birthday. Now it was something else entirely. She asked him about it the next morning, keeping her voice light, almost joking. Did you change your phone password? Yeah, the IT guy at work said we should change all our PINs after a data thing. Company policy. Why, you need something off my phone. No, she didn't need anything. She just nodded and handed him his tea, and that was the end of it. Around the same time, a new name entered their household in the most ordinary way possible. Imran mentioned during dinner one evening that a new business partner had joined his company, a man named Fawad. Fawad's name started appearing in conversations. Fawad had good contacts in the Gulf. Fawad had new people in Dubai. Imran was going to Karachi to meet Fawad's family. Fawad's D. Fawad this. Fawad that. Sana never met Fawad. She never thought to question why. What Sana did not know, what she could not have imagined, was that Fawad did not exist. He was a name, a placeholder, a door that opened into a life Imran had built in the dark, brick by brick, for years. And behind that door lived a woman, a wife, a second family. A secret so large it had its own address. The months passed. The small tensions became white noise. Sana told herself she was being paranoid, the anxiety of a woman who had perhaps read too many cautionary stories, who had too much time to think while the children were at school. Imran was good to her. He came home. He sat at the dinner table. He helped Zain with his homework on most nights. He was present. Or at least, present enough that his absence never became a wound. It stayed a bruise. Something she pressed on occasionally and then ignored. It was a Tuesday when everything changed. The children were at school. Imran was in Karachi, or so he said, for 3 days. Sana was looking for a receipt she needed for a household insurance form. She remembered Imran sometimes kept papers in the bottom drawer of the wardrobe, the one he had claimed as his document drawer years ago. She had never gone through it. She had no reason to. It was his space, and she respected that. She opened it. And there, underneath a folded utility bill, was a brown envelope. Plain. Unlabeled. The kind of envelope that holds nothing important, until it does. Inside were 4 photographs. Printed. Physical photographs. Not phone images, actual prints. The first was taken in what looked like a wedding hall. Imran, dressed in an ivory sherwani she had never seen, standing beside a woman. The woman was young, maybe 23 or 24. Pretty, dressed as a bride. Smiling up at Imran the way Sana herself had smiled on her own wedding day, with that specific, terrifying joy of someone who believes they are beginning the best chapter of their life. The date stamp in the corner said March 2017, 3 years after Sana and Imran's wedding, 1 year before Mariam was born. Sana sat down on the floor. She did not decide to sit. Her legs simply stopped working. She looked at the photograph for a very long time. Her mind did what human minds do in the face of something impossible. It searched for an alternative explanation. A cousin's wedding. A photograph he was asked to hold. An event she had simply forgotten about. But the sherwani, the way his hand was on the woman's shoulder, the way he was looking at her, there was no explanation that fit except the one she could not accept. She looked at the second photograph. Imran at a dinner table. The same woman beside him. An older couple across the table, her parents perhaps. Imran laughing at something, relaxed. At home. The third photograph showed the woman visibly pregnant, Imran's hand on her stomach. His face turned toward the camera, proud in the way men look when they are about to become fathers for the first time. Except Imran had already become a father. He had become a father with Sana. Zain was already 4 years old in this photograph. The fourth photograph was a child. A little girl, perhaps 2 years old, sitting on Imran's lap, laughing at something off camera. The child had his eyes. Sana placed all 4 photographs on the floor in front of her. She sat with them for a long time. The jasmine on the windowsill filled the room with its smell. Somewhere outside, a car honked. The refrigerator hummed. The world continued being the world, indifferent to the fact that everything inside that room had just ended. She called Imran. Her hands were steady. She did not understand how her hands were steady. When are you coming back? Tomorrow evening. Why, everything okay? Yes, everything is fine. Come home. She ended the call. She put the photographs back in the envelope. She put the envelope back exactly where she had found it. She closed the drawer. Then she went to the kitchen, made herself tea she did not drink, and sat at the table until it was time to pick up the children from school. That night, she did not sleep. She lay beside Miriam, who had climbed into her bed as she sometimes did, and she stared at the ceiling and she thought about the last 7 years with a precision and focus she had never applied to them before. She thought about the Karachi trips, the locked phone, the name Fawad, the times he'd been home but somehow not present. She thought about a knife 4 years ago which she had found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a toy shop in Karachi. She had assumed it was a gift idea for Zain that he had forgotten about. She had thrown the receipt away. She thought about the time he cried during an argument and told her he was sorry, just sorry, and she had held him and asked no questions because she trusted him. She thought, how long does a person have to look away before they are complicit in their own betrayal? She found the second phone the next day. It had been taped to the underside of a shelf in the storage room. A cheap device, no apps, just calls and messages. She found his name in it saved as H, for husband, she would later understand. The messages were in a woman's voice, warm, domestic. The baby has a fever. She is asking for you. When are you coming home? We miss you. I made your favorite. Please come soon. The last message was from 2 days ago. Safe travels. Come back to us. There was a whole life in that phone. A woman named Rabia, a daughter named Hira, an address in Karachi, and 7 years of messages that told a story of a man who had not been living a double life. He had been living a full life twice. When Imran walked through the door the following evening, Sana was sitting in the living room. The photographs were on the table in front of her. The second phone was beside them. He stopped in the doorway. She watched his face go through several expressions in the space of 2 seconds. Surprise, recognition, calculation, and then something that looked almost like relief. As if he had always known this moment was coming and was tired of waiting for it. He said her name. She told him to sit down. He said, "Please just let me explain." She said, "Sit down again," and something in her voice made him obey. He sat, and he told her. Not everything, she would piece the rest together later, but enough. Robia was from a family his parents had always approved of. He had been pressured into the arrangement before Sana, he said. But he had not gone through with it then. After Zain was born, his mother had pressured him again, and this time he had given in. He told himself it would remain distant, that he could manage it, that no one would be hurt. Sana listened to all of it. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She asked one question when he finished. "Does she know about me?" He was quiet for a long time. Yes. So Rabia had known about Sana from the beginning. The only person in this entire architecture of deception who had been kept completely in the dark, who had been allowed to live in beautiful, humiliating ignorance, was Sana herself. What Sana did not expect, what nothing prepares you for, is how alone you become the moment the truth is out. She told her mother first. She drove to her parents' house the next morning. The children at school, Imran asked to leave for the time being. She sat across from her mother at the kitchen table where she had grown up, and she told her everything. And her mother, her warm, capable, steady mother, went very still. And then she said something that Sana would hear in her head for a long time afterward. "Are you sure you are not misunderstanding something? Men sometimes make mistakes. Are you sure this is what it looks like?" Sana had brought the photographs. She placed them on the table. Her mother looked at them for a long time. Then she said quietly that Sana had children. She had a home. These things are not simple. She went to her mother-in-law next. She did not plan to. Something in her needed to know if the family had known. She showed up unannounced. Imran's mother opened the door and looked at Sana's face and already knew something had shifted. When Sana showed her the photographs, her mother-in-law did not look surprised. She looked tired. The way people look when a secret they have been carrying for years is finally lifted from their hands. She started to say this was arranged a long time ago, the family needed, and Sana cut her off. "Did you know about me? When he married her, did you know about me?" Her mother-in-law did not answer, which was its own answer. His family had known. His mother, his 2 brothers, at least one of them had known. There had been people sitting at Sana's dinner table, eating her food, holding her children, and knowing. For 7 years, people who called her family had looked her in the eyes and said nothing. The betrayal was not just Imran's. It was a structure, an architecture built by multiple hands. And she had been sealed inside it without her knowledge or her consent. She reached out to a close friend named Kiran, someone she had known since university. Kiran listened carefully, then said, "Are you sure you want to make this public? Think about what it will do to the children. Think about what people will say about you." About her. What people would say about her. She consulted a lawyer, a woman a colleague had recommended. The lawyer was practical and kind and told Sana the honest truth, that in her specific circumstances, the legal process would be long, contested, and exhausting. "I am not telling you not to fight," the lawyer said. "I am telling you to understand what fighting will cost you." Nobody was telling her she was wrong. They were all, in their own ways, telling her that being right was expensive, that her pain was valid but inconvenient, that justice was available in theory and complicated in practice. And underneath all of it ran a current she recognized as the oldest current in the world. The pressure on a woman to absorb, adjust, forgive, and continue. She stopped eating properly. She lost weight. She didn't have to lose. She started waking at 3 in the morning with a specific kind of dread, not of the future, but of the past. She would lie in the dark and replay conversations, events, entire years, and she would see them differently now, like photographs developed in the wrong chemical. His face at their wedding, his tears, his hands on her when Miriam was born. All of it still real. All of it now also a performance. The cruelest thing about a long deception is not the lie itself. It is that it retroactively corrupts every true moment inside it. She was 34 years old and she felt ancient. She felt like someone who had been living inside a house that turned out to be a stage set, beautiful from the front, nothing behind the walls. The turning point, when it came, did not arrive dramatically. It arrived the way most real turning points do, quietly, through a door you weren't expecting to open. It came through Rabia. Sanaa had not contacted her. She had no intention of contacting her. But 3 weeks after the confrontation with Imran, she received a phone call from an unknown number she almost didn't pick up. But she did. The voice on the other end was young, calm in the way of someone who has been crying for a long time and is temporarily run out. "This is Rabia. I know you have no reason to speak to me, but I need you to know something." Sana said nothing. She sat down. "I was told you had left him." "Before we married?" "I was told you had divorced him and moved on. I was told you wanted nothing more to do with him. I swear to you on my daughter's life, I was told you were no longer his wife." The line was silent for a moment. "I have been lied to too," Rabia said. "He has done to me what he has done to you. He kept us both in the dark. I thought I was a wife. I was a secret. And I have a child with this man." Sanaa listened. And something shifted in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but recognition. Here was another woman who had been handed a false map and told it was the territory. Here was someone who had loved in good faith and been used as architecture. They spoke for 40 minutes. When they ended the call, Sana sat for a long time. She thought he could only maintain what he had maintained because both women trusted him completely and never spoke to each other. His power was built entirely on their separation. And now that separation was gone. Sana went back to the lawyer, this time with clarity instead of desperation. And she went with documentation. Records Rabia had willingly shared. Financial trails, dates and records that formed an undeniable picture. The lawyer looked at everything and said, "Now we have something." She also did something she had never done before. She stopped managing other people's discomfort. She called her mother back and said with complete calm that she was not asking for permission. She was telling her what was happening. She called Kieran and said she didn't need opinions about what people would say. She needed to know if Kieran was there for her or not. Kieran was. Her mother, after a few days of silence, came around, slowly, imperfectly, but she came. Sana went back to work full-time. She had been part-time for 5 years. She updated her position at the school to full-time administrator. It was not dramatic. It was practical. But practicality, she was learning, is its own form of power. Every action that made her more capable, more independent, more present in the architecture of her own life. Every one of those actions was a brick in a new structure, one built by her hands, with no false walls. She told Zain and Mariam, gently, age-appropriately, that Mama and Baba were going to live separately for a while. Zain, who was 7 and understood more than she gave him credit for, looked at her seriously and asked, "Are you going to be okay?" And Sana looked at her son, this child who had her nose and her stubbornness, and she said, "Yes, I am going to be very okay." And for the first time in weeks, she believed it. The legal process took 11 months. It was not clean or swift. There were delays, objections, moments when Imran's family applied pressure through every channel available to them. There was a period of 3 months when Imran refused to cooperate with any of the proceedings, and Sana had to return to court twice with her lawyer to push the process forward. There was a final meeting, not in a courtroom, but in a mediator's office. The kind of beige, neutral space designed to take the edges off conflict. Imran sat across from her. He looked diminished in a way that surprised her. Not smaller physically, but thinner somehow, like a structure that had lost its load-bearing support. He had lost his 2 families simultaneously. Rabia had left him within weeks of the truth coming out. His company had restructured and his position had changed. The life he had built, the twin lives he had built, had collapsed into rubble at roughly the same time. He looked at Sana across the table and he said, "I'm sorry. I know that's nothing, but I am." Sana looked at him for a long moment. She thought about all the versions of this moment she had imagined in the dark at 3 in the morning. The versions where she said something devastating and precise that would finally make him understand. The versions where she cried. The versions where she forgave him. The versions where she forgave him. The version where she felt nothing. What she actually felt was something quieter than any of those. She felt the clean, strange peace of a woman who has finally stopped carrying someone else's secret. "I know you are," she said. "But your story belongs to your children. All 3 of them. It doesn't belong to me anymore." She signed the paperwork. She walked out of the office into an afternoon that was unremarkably ordinary. Traffic, someone selling fruit from a cart, 2 children arguing over a cricket bat on the footpath. The world doing what it always does. Continuing. She called her mother on the way to her car. Her mother answered on the second ring. "How did it go?" Sana said, "It's done." Her mother was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Come for dinner. I'll make your favorite." It was such a small sentence, such an ordinary act of love. Sana sat in her car for a few minutes before starting the engine. She moved into a smaller flat, just her and the children. She decorated it slowly, deliberately. No jasmine on the windowsill this time. She chose something else. A small cactus. Something that does not need constant tending. Something that survives. Zayn and Mariam adjusted with the specific resilience of children who are loved consistently and well. There were hard nights. There were questions she answered as honestly as she could within the boundaries of what they could understand. There were mornings when she was tired in a bone-deep way that had nothing to do with sleep. But there were also evenings, and this is the part no one tells you, the part that matters. Evenings when she sat with her children after dinner, all 3 of them on the small sofa in the small flatta, watching something on television, laughing at something, and she felt not happiness exactly. Not yet, but the early architecture of it. The foundation poured, the walls beginning to rise. She kept the photographs. Not to look at. She kept them because she had decided not to let anything about her own story disappear. Not the beautiful parts, not the devastating ones. All of it had made her. She was not going to pretend otherwise. The woman who had opened that drawer looking for a receipt had believed her life was whole. The woman who walked out of that mediator's office knew her life was beginning. The difference between those 2 women, the cost of that difference, the weight of it, the strange, terrible gift of it, that is what this story is about. 7 years. 7 years of a man living 2 lives, and the only person who was never allowed to know was the person who deserved the truth most. Now I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it honestly. If you had opened that drawer, if you had found those photographs, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet to protect the family? Would you have fought no matter the cost? Or would you have done what Sana did, carried the weight of it alone for weeks, and then finally chosen yourself? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story reached something inside you, if you felt even 1 second of what Sana felt, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Legacy of Pain because every story here is real and every one of them matters. I'll see you in the next one.